Welcome aboard. You're listening to FlightPlan Quick Consults, your go-to podcast for veterinary insights that are fast, focused, and designed to elevate your practice. I'm your host, Brenda Tassa Medina from Encore Veterinary Consulting. Whether you're between appointments or heading into a strategy session, we've got takeoff-ready tips, tools, and takeaways to keep your team soaring. So buckle up and let's chart today's course to exploring our telephones today. Today's panel includes Debbie Boone, Amanda Edwards, and Carol Hurst. Debbie, you're a co-founder of the NAAVR. Tell our listeners a little about this organization and about yourself.
Yeah. Dr. Jill Clark and I decided that veterinary receptionists were an underserved component in our veterinary teams and that they needed a voice. So we got together and formed an association called the North American Association for Veterinary Receptionists, NAVR.org. And we are working to just enlighten practices as to how important the front desk is and to have a supportive community for those CSRs and then to give them some tips and ideas about how to make this a career rather than that 6-month stint it typically is because we don't have longevity in that position. So we're going to work really hard to make it um, show how valuable these are as team members.
Yeah, I think everyone on this call has been a CSR at some point in our
Yeah. So we're
careers.
all going, yes.
Yes. Amanda, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Amanda. I am a practice manager here in Greenville, North Carolina at Animal Care of Greenville. Prior to being the practice manager here at the clinic, I started off as a CSR in the veterinary world. So Debbie, I actually didn't hear about NAVR until I became a practice manager, and I was really bummed that I didn't have that tool when I was a receptionist. So I'm super excited that that's a resource for our receptionists out there. Um, Client service is kind of my jam. I love focusing on the client experience. And so I think that I'm really excited that you're doing this topic today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Amanda. And last but not least, Carol Hurst.
My name, of course, is Carol Hurst, and I've got credential technician roots. I went into tech school straight out of high school. And as much as I love the medicine, I also loved being able to develop teams and grow in leadership. So my background is managing practices. I've had a strong just affinity for the client service role because I've worked with professionals throughout my career. And I grew in leadership, CVPM, got into consulting, and here I am.
You are my CSR boot camp queen, that's for sure.
Doing a lot, doing a lot.
All right, well, let's dig right in. And, sometimes we, as practice managers and practice owners, we have feelings about what's going on with our phone. And I'd like you to share your insights around how does a practice leader know if things are failing with their phones? Like, are they actually failing them, or are they just having a feeling? It just feels bad. How can they tell? We'll start with you, Debbie. What are your thoughts?
Well, fortunately, these days we have some better tools than we used to back in the day, right?
Right.
And so when we have these great voice over IP phone systems, they allow us to do some data analysis. We can get into those systems. We can look at our call answer rate. We can look at how many calls are abandoned, because every one of those abandoned calls is a potential appointment that we're losing. And we can look at peak times. The other point is like, when can we staff a little bit more? I think one of the things that I see a lot in working with clinics is they have a tendency to understaff the front desk and then anticipate that they're going to be able to do all the callbacks and answer all the emails and the text messages and answer the phones in a timely manner. And something's going to give. And a lot of times it is the phone because we also have a generation who likes to avoid talking on the telephone. So to add a little fuel to the fire, let's just throw that generational thing in there. It's like we hate the phone. But we have data. We can look and see, and we can also look at is our appointment book full? Do we have a wait list? Are we calling people when we have no shows and trying to get those people in? So we have some metrics that we actually can look at and gauge that. The other part of that equation is if my team is doing a great job, I need to reward that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Amanda, how have you tested your phones in the past and been able to tell that there's an issue?
Yeah, so I think that first, one of the biggest things is just some concrete signs within the hospital. So, hearing repeatedly from your clients, I tried calling, but having multiple voicemails, sometimes even from the same client over and over again. Having your callbacks for your doctors, maybe they're piling up, or maybe they're coming all at once because your team is not prioritizing the phones and all the voice messages are getting checked at the same time. One really awesome way that we were able to see where our team was at a moment in time was utilizing kind of like a mystery shopper program. And we utilized you guys actually to do a TLC program with our clinic. And so having calls either pulled straight from our VoIP system, which is awesome that these telephone systems are crazy nowadays. They do so many things. But either one, being able to pull phone calls and give true client to staff phone calls to your team to review, go over a couple of different parameters and see, are they checking all the boxes when they're talking to clients, or even having somebody with the scripts or even the questions just to ask and calling and grading them off of a rubric. And I will say, when we went through it the first time, I was, if my jaw could have hit the floor, it would have. I know that I have extremely high standards for the care that our clients receive, and our numbers definitely painted a very real picture for me and showed me that we needed some serious help at our front desk, all from starting by the way that we greet the client on the phone. Are we utilizing the patient's name throughout the phone call? Are we asking the right questions? Are we taking our time with them? And then are we following up and actually converting that phone call into a visit? And there were some really quick phone calls. I was just like, what are you even trying to accomplish here? We're not racing to see who can get on and off the call the fastest. So it was eye-opening to say the least.
Yeah.
Well, and I know that you put a lot of work into that and a lot of training, and they improved dramatically. So
Yes.
congratulations for that.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Carol, what about you?
So, I like to look at my team stress signal, right? So, when I start hearing from my team that uh, you know, the phones are a burden and, kind of eye rolls and the huffing and some of the nonverbals, when I've experienced that in my team in the past, that was the yellow flag for me as a practice manager to say, I need to look a little bit deeper. Am I seeing things like, my perceived hard to fill spots like 4:30, the end of the day spot, are those being protected or are they actually hard to fill? Are we gaining some sensitivity around being that guide for the client, or is it seen as a burden? So, where's my team's mentality at? And then as the practice manager, I'm diving deeper. I'm using that as a yellow flag to maybe I'm auditing 10 random calls over the week just to see where we're at, and see if there's something that I need to dive into.
Okay. All great ways to take a look at that. My second question, on behalf of all the practice owners and practice managers out there is, what telephone standards make the biggest difference without sounding scripted or robotic? I know this is a difficult one for a lot of practice teams because they want to provide training, but they don't want their team members to feel like they're reading a script. So, how do we tackle that? I'll start with you again, Debbie.
Yeah. Well, as you guys probably all know, I wrote a book about hospitality and healthcare. And I
Yes.
think that training your team to hospitality changes that script from a rote thing that I have to say A, B, C, and D to an invitation to come into the practice and to create a relationship with that person on the telephone and to discover interesting things about them that I can make connection points with. And so when you start to frame it a little bit differently to your team, that this is the way that we drive revenue into the practice. Of course, the owner mentality is let's drive revenue, let's get the appointment book filled. But for the team, it's much more, let me help people. Let me help the humans on the other end of the line and let me help their animals. And when we think about it like that and inviting them into the practice and giving them a welcome experience, it's much easier to get buy-in because otherwise when people, it's like with your kids, when you tell them something to do, the immediate action is like, let me balk, I don't want to do that. It's just because you told me so, right? So invite me into understanding why it's important and why it matters. And then going back to a couple of things that Amanda and Carol said, I think one of the things that people tend to miss is tone and intonation on those phone calls. And I have found that letting my staff listen to what they say after the fact is a great way to let them be enlightened to say, oh, I didn't mean to say it that way, or that came off sounding like, a little harsh or a little short, or like I was rushing people to get off the phone. So that kind of feedback, we're all our own worst critics, always. So let's let our staff, not just the managers, listen to the calls, but let's let the staff hear themselves and say, did you feel like this was hospitable, inviting, welcoming, that you were glad to help these people, and maybe that is the tipping point.
Great. Thank you, Debbie.
Mhm.
Carol, what kind of standards do you recommend to your client practices or your CSR teams, especially in your boot camp, that really make a big difference without that scripted feeling?
Yeah. You know how much I love my scripts.
I know, I do too.
I know. So I want to take it back to like going a little bit deeper into some of the strategy around our training, right? Because all of us on this call, I think, can acknowledge that CSR training is kind of not where it should be. I mean, it's way better now than it was when I was in practice, but one of the things that I encourage as a baseline is, do you know your common medical topics, just the high level client education topics, heartworm disease life cycle, right? Vaccine schedule. I mean, that is like the big one. And I just took a call today where the CSR wasn't sure if the doctor would recommend a fecal, if they want to recommend the fecal for the puppy, if they want to recommend, or when rabies was going to be administered, to be able to give me as the potential client this really good, solid recommendation. And if our education isn't there, when you're trying to make a difference in the warmth, Debbie mentions hospitality and warmth. If you're so worried about what your standards are and you're having to look up your cheat sheets and you just don't know the information, you can't relax on the call. You can't
No.
bond on the call. You can't be warm if you're so worried about what, information you're giving. So I think at its very base, let's make sure that they have a solid training on the common education topics.
Yeah. And I like the way that you turn training or you turn scripts into the training element because I see scripting as like a starting point.
Yeah.
Learn the content through a script, but then once you're comfortable with it, you put your own spin on it, your own flair.
Yeah.
What
Yeah,
about
I think
you, Amanda? What have you used with your team?
So I think, as Debbie mentioned, letting them listen to their own phone calls.
Oh yeah.
One of the big things we like to do is coach the wins, not the mistakes. And so letting them listen back to a phone call, sitting with them and letting them listen to it, and starting first with what did you do well? Build their confidence, remove the fear of phones, and then ask what they would try differently next time. So you're encouraging experimentation and not letting them fall into paralysis on the phone. And I feel like that confidence is going to fix your phones a lot quicker than anything else. And then also, I think one of the big things with our team is having them helping them have a mindset shift. So instead of looking at phones as a burden, looking at phones as an access to care, not an interruption to our day. Our phones are going to be the front door pretty much to our clients. That's the moment that a client's going to decide whether or not they trust you. And really, like Carol was mentioning, it's going to be their first medical interaction with our team. So making sure that they have that set knowledge base and they're confident to start the conversation and give them the ability to say, I don't know the answer to that. I need to ask someone, but also taking ownership of that call and saying, let me get an answer for you and I'm going to call you back. My name is Amanda. I will be reaching back out. If you don't hear from me in a good time frame, like give me a call back and ask for me. Let's chat and finish this conversation. And so I think ownership is also a huge part of that.
Excellent, excellent. I didn't think about this question until you were talking, but um,
Curveball.
yeah, I think a couple of, I know a curveball, but and I don't know how you're going to answer, but a couple of you mentioned, not staffing adequately at the front desk in order to serve the phones best. What are your thoughts around virtual CSRs to really take some of that phone load off?
Ooh, pick me, pick me.
Amanda.
We use a virtual CSR, but like a real human being. I
Right.
know that there are AI
Mhm.
CSR tools, but we do use a real live CSR, and she has been amazing. She interacts so frequently with our clients that I'm pretty sure some people think that we have her hiding in a back room. She knows people by name. We also utilize a texting platform, and our clients that don't want to talk on the phone, they want to text us first. She's manning a lot of that, and so she's keeping up with our text messages. And she's phenomenal. When she takes off, when she has PTO days, my team, they just they realize how much she does in the background, and they look at me and they're just like, does she have to take days off? Can we get somebody else? Like, you guys put a lot of training into her. It's not going to happen overnight just to bring somebody else in. So she's been phenomenal. I love it personally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Debbie, have you
Yeah,
had any experiences with it?
I've talked to several companies that offer this, and I think some of the teletriage companies have morphed a little bit towards helping take some of the overflow burden off of the front desk, which I think is great. And especially if you have consistently, like Amanda said, the same person who's recognizing your clients and who may have talked to them the week before and who knows what's going on. And of course, there's AI stuff coming out all over the place. We are AIs out the wazoo here. But the problem with AI is it cannot recognize that there was a human last week that you spoke with, and it can, I've experienced AI chatbots multitudes of times in trying to get something done. And, it works for very simple things, but then there's the frustration level of it just doesn't understand what I'm trying to ask it like a human. So, and the whole point of this is connection, right? It is trying to make a connection with others. So I love the idea of having somebody who actually can concentrate and that's just, back in the day when we decided to take phones off the front desk and put them in a phone room, it was the same principle. Let's have somebody who's not trying to juggle 15 different things in the air and have them completely concentrate on the person who's on the phone and who can get their questions answered and who's, focused on that task and that task alone. So, we have a lot of people in our world who are looking for remote work, and if you can get them and you can get them properly trained, I think it's a great tool.
What about you, Carol?
So, Amanda, I use your experience as kind of my gold standard because I know that you've had such a great, just, such a great person that fits into that role. I think it has a lot of potential. I don't know that we've figured it out enough to where we can kind of have this really good and consistent model, because I see in the practices that are trying this, I see just too much of a variation in the quality, whether it's the individual's expectations or training that we try to put out there for them. I think the potential's there. I think, Debbie, you hit the nail on the head that exploring remote options for our field is, I mean, we're just taking the baby steps into it. I think it has a lot of potential, and I'm excited to see where it goes in a couple of years. I don't think we have it figured out yet.
I
But
will
man,
say
Amanda, I'm keeping you in mind.
we got lucky, and I know that I've had other practice managers reach out to me asking, like pulling their hair out, asking how we did it, and it did come with a lot of training hiccups. It's hard when you don't have them physically in the building with you. But I think another big thing to that point is having her on. She is on a Teams call with our CSRs the entire shift. And that helps for a lot of dialogue back and forth with our team. And she has instant access to all of us for training. She sits in on our staff meetings. So we have worked really hard to get her to the point that she's at. I know it's not for everybody, and some people may come for me for this, but I do truly love our virtual CSR. She's amazing.
Yeah, I've had several clients that have had similar experiences, but then they've also had bad experiences. And I think it just comes down to hiring the right people
I
and
know.
training. Just like people who are going to be in your
Everything else.
practice, you've got to apply those same principles when you're hiring somebody who's going to be virtual for you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you something interesting because I've been doing this, 180 years. Um, Back way back in the 90s, we had veterinarian from Japan visit our practice. And because Japan is so small and they have so many people, they always had their reception staff completely separate from their veterinary hospitals. And this, I'm talking way back. And they had the whole setup and the phones and stuff set up so that they would actually ring into someone's home or an office building at a call center, and they took their calls that way. So it's not a really new thing that we're doing. It may be new to us, but necessity is the mother of invention. And I kind of feel like we're at that point where we need to be creative about how to make sure our clients' calls are getting answered because we have email, because we have text, people who want to correspond with us, that we will do that. But when somebody is calling you, they are urgent. They want a human, they want to talk to somebody who can guide them. And as Carol mentioned, you're talking about the confidence of training. If your tour guide doesn't know the path, you're not going to follow the path. So they've got to know. You've got to train. You have got to train.
Absolutely. Training and telephones, they go hand in
Mm.
hand. Well, thank you all for being a part of our panel today. And thanks for flying with us on Flight Plan Quick Consults. If today's insights helped you climb to new heights, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with your crew. Until next time, keep your mission clear, your team aligned, and your practice soaring.